Heavenly Father, we come before you in the increasing humility that we know we need as a people to lead your city, to be the people of your city, to love one another more than we love anything that we're doing in the city, and to be together in this end of the year as we're celebrating our faith traditions, our old year out and the new year in. I want to pray especially for the benefit and the welfare of our colleagues who are leaving us this evening after their amazing and dedicated lengths of service. We thank you for every hour that they have spent and every decision that they have made, and we know that Charleston will be the better for it. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I know many of y'all have been here before in the very unlikely event that we would be asked to vacate the building. These are our two exit doors from this main chamber, and there's an exit door from the room to my right. In that event, please don't use the elevators, but take the stairs down to the first floor and then the single stairs out the front to the street. Very unlikely, but I just want everybody to know where to go in case we needed to vacate the building. So first, I'd like to invite Charlton Singleton and Kiana Parler, and is Quentin with us as well? He is. Quentin Baxter, please join me on the stage here. I guess stage is a good name for it this evening, because how often do you have a local group of the most talented musicians nominated for a Grammy Award from Charleston, South Carolina? Yes. And so I would like to share a proclamation with everyone of the city of Charleston regarding this amazing group. Whereas the city of Charleston wishes to recognize the talented Grammy-nominated, you know their name, right? Ranky Tanky, for their many achievements and contributions. Ranky Tanky is a Charleston, South Carolina-based quintet whose members have been playing music together for nearly 20 years. And occasionally they'd ask me to join them on a gig or two, but not with the Ranky Tanky Band. I'm still waiting for that. The members are Quentin Baxter on drums and percussion. Kevin Hamilton is not with us tonight on bass. Kiana Parler on vocals. Clay Ross on guitar, also not with us tonight. And Charlton Singleton on trumpet and vocals. And whereas the name Ranky Tanky is a Gullah expression that loosely translated means work it or get funky. And the band finds its musical roots in the Gullah tradition and the songs of slave descendants of the Sea Islands, which was a culture heavily influenced by West African culture. Whereas Ranky Tanky's self-titled debut album was released on September 15, 2017, and was featured on NPR's Fresh Air with Terry Gross and The Today Show, it quickly climbed. It was #1 position on the Billboard, Amazon, and iTunes jazz charts. Their second album, A Good Time, was released this past summer, July 12th, and quickly soared to the top of the charts. Most recently, it earned a Grammy Award nomination for Best Regional Roots Music Album. And whereas the members of Ranky Tanky have been presenting the music of the Gullah tradition with the highest amount of respect and homage to the community, they have been using their remarkable talents to enlighten, entertain, and educate their audiences on Gullah tradition and how it informs so many aspects of American culture, particularly within the arts. And whereas I'm honored to recognize Ranky Tanky and its members and thank them for the tremendous impact they've had on our community, the city of Charleston and its citizens are proud to recognize them and to wish them luck at the upcoming Grammy Awards on January 26, 2020. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, do hereby proclaim today, y'all, December 17th of 2019 is Ranky Tanky Day in the City of Charleston. Woo!
First of all, thank you, Mayor Tecklenburg, and all of the council members. We'd like to say thank you for this tremendous honor. We'd like to thank our families and friends and everybody in the Low Country, especially with the Gullah community, for all of the love and support and encouragement that they have given and shown us, not only as individual artists throughout our careers, but definitely as Ranky-Tanky over the last few years. We ask that you all continue to support us and pray for us as we continue to travel and spread all of the good that is of the Low Country and the Gullah tradition. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Wait, Mr. Mayor, would you, I know one of the band members is not here, but his mother and brother's here. Could we please recognize them and get them to stand? Give them a hand.
This is Mrs. Doris Hamilton, Kevin, our bassist's mom, and Keith, Kevin's brother, and they're here representing, yes.
So I'm just going to put it this way. Everybody have a ranky-tanky Christmas. Yeah, we're going to work it. All right. So next we'd like to recognize our 4 retiring council members. And I'm going to go in district order. So we're going to start with Gary White. And I'm going to ask Gary, if you'd like to have your family join you up here as well, to receive a plaque in appreciation from the city of Charleston. I want to thank Councilmember White. He spent more than a decade on Charleston City Council representing the residents of District 1. Serving as a city council, and by the way, he served for years as chair of our Ways and Means Committee, as the vice chair of our Human Resources Committee. He's currently chair of Real Estate Committee and on other committees as well. His contributions over the last 12 years range from his work on traffic and transportation to serving as chair of Real Estate and Ways and Means. I got to tell you, Gary has really been an asset on this new committee we formed last year, what we call the Ad Hoc Budget Committee, and his insight into our city budget has been so helpful and meaningful for our, I must say, for our taxpayers. So thank you, Councilmember White, for the contributions you've made over the years and your tremendous commitment to improving this community, the city of Charleston, for its citizens. We give you this plaque for your distinguished service rendered to the city of Charleston from 2008 until 2020.
I'll take just a minute to say a couple things. I don't have anything planned, and that's one of the things that I think was best about being on council, is that rarely was anything ever planned. I will say, I want a couple things. When I got involved in city council 12 years ago, I really had no idea what I was getting into. But most importantly, I had no idea how much I would have grown professionally and personally. And so from that perspective, I'm very thankful for what I've been able to accomplish, not only for the taxpayers and the citizens of Charleston, but how I've been able to grow personally as well. I've obviously met a lot of great people. I've worked with a tremendous amount of folks in the community. I've learned so much. I want to thank staff. I can tell you, I told Susan earlier this evening that there was often times where, and I know my colleagues will relate to this, is that we'll get phone calls from citizens who are angry and upset and want action, and just sometimes when we think that there wasn't anything we could do about it, we pick up the phone, we call staff, and inevitably I never had one staff member who didn't put me at ease and make sure that we were able to do what we need to do and get things accomplished. I've had the benefit and pleasure of working with so many of you all through the years. And so thank you all for everything you do. I can tell you the employees of the City of Charleston are the hardest working people that I've ever met. And they work tirelessly. They do it happily. And just like us, they come in here and sit until late evening hours, and they don't complain in public. But they're wonderful, and so, again, thank you all to the staff and everything for what y'all have done. For the new oncoming members of council, I saw Marie earlier, who will be taking over as District 1. Congratulations on your win. To other council members who are here, congratulations to you all. All I can tell you that moving forward is keep your head down, work hard. I promise you, there'll be days where you're confused, but there will be days where you will also recognize the benefit of the hard work you put into this job. Don't ever do it for any other reason than the benefit of the citizens of the City of Charleston, and making sure that you do something that's bigger than you, always. And then lastly, I want to thank my family, who I don't think collectively have been in City Hall in the capacity like this in 12 years. And so for those of you all who have been around a while, there was a picture that was taken of us when I was first inaugurated 12 years ago on the front steps, and it was all of us and Mayor Riley. And I think back about that picture earlier today as I was thinking about maybe some comments I might make, and all these kids were this big. And I didn't look at it because I figured it'd make me cry, so I didn't take a look at it this evening. But I want to thank them. We work as council members thousands of hours. I can't imagine, I didn't do the math, but I'm telling you, there's thousands of hours that we have put in to this work, and we do it because we love our city. And I want to thank my family for willing to let me do it. Because there are many nights that I didn't come home, and maybe I spent 15 minutes with my children a day, but they were happy to let me do it, and so for that I thank you all. I appreciate everything you've done, and for the first time in 12 years, I'll have nothing but some free time on my hands to spend some time with my family and with my company, and so again, thank you all for allowing me this opportunity. Thanks to citizens of Charleston for allowing me to serve in this capacity for 12 years. It has been 100% my great pleasure and honor. Thank you all.
Next, if I could call up to join me on the podium along with his family members and any friends he would like, Councilmember James Lewis, who has served the City of Charleston on this council for the last 24 years. Just an amazing legacy. Chair of many committees over those years, the Human Services Resources Committee, Vice Chair of Ways and Means Committee, Public Safety, the Mayor Pro Tem in both 2013 and 2018. He was first elected to council November of 1995, which means I stated 24 as a number. That's nearly a quarter of a century, a really remarkable achievement. And over those last 24 years, Councilmember Lewis has demonstrated what public service is really all about: giving a voice to the voiceless and being a true, unwavering advocate for positive change. Our city is better off thanks to his decades of service, and I'm honored to have had the opportunity to work alongside him for these past 4 years. I know that his impact on the Charleston community will continue to be felt for many years to come. Councilmember James Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to thank my family who've been behind me the last 24 years. My church family, the vestry from Evansville Church, Brother Foster here. Sister Lynette is also in the vestry of Evansville Church. And the last 12 years, I look at Lynette, she's my prayer partner. We've been prayer partners for about 20, a little over 20 years. I said, you know what? I want you to run my campaign for me. She said, huh? I said, yes, I want you to run my campaign for me. So she ran my campaign the last 3 elections, and she's done a wonderful job. Again, I want to thank the citizens of this city for allowing me to serve. Those, especially those citizens in District 3 who saw fit to vote for me each time, and for those who didn't vote for me, but somewhere down the line still supported me, I was glad that I was here. It was a pleasure serving the city for 24 years. It's a job that you got to love, not like. You got to love it. You got to be a servant and want to be a servant in order to be a city council person. It takes a lot of hours. It takes a lot of work. Especially in my district, we go through a lot of stuff. Me and Councilman Gallant, Councilman Mitchell, 3, 4, 2, 1 o'clock in the morning, do Chief Greenberg time, do Chief Mullins time, whenever there's a murder in the district, bad fire in the district, Charles Francis would call us. We would get out of our bed 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and go see what we could do to help, especially when someone is murdered, because the families are so upset, and sometimes people in the community are really upset, so we would get there to help calm the crowd down. I may not be elected to do that, but because you love people and you love the job, we did that. I can tell you one thing about me. There was a group of us called the Eastside VIP. We started volunteering in this city in 1977, before Mayor Riley established the neighborhood councils. We were volunteering. If anybody go to the Eastside Community Development Corporation Neighborhood Council building on America Street, we bought that building. The Eastside VIP, we bought that building. I've been here, and I want to tell you all one thing. I love serving, and I'm not going nowhere. Now I'll be doing some more volunteering, but I am not going nowhere. The 2 committees I think that I need to serve on most is going to be the Community Development Preservation Committee, which deals with housing, because everybody knows that housing is my thing. And the other is Carter Board, because we need a good bus system. We have come a long ways. We've got a long ways to go. We're replacing the buses. Now we got to start taking a look at the routes, because Charleston have grown. But the reason I want to stay on Carter Board again is because Charleston is built a bunch of service jobs. And there's a lot of people that works downtown that don't have cars, don't have transportation. Carter's all that they got. So we want to make sure that Carter is able to serve them. A lot of people that's working downtown can't afford to live downtown no more. So that's why I want to continue to serve on the Housing Committee, to make sure that we work, to make sure that those that we can help to be able to live back into the city or in the city of Charleston, that we will be able to do that. So I will be around. But I want to thank my colleagues. We've had some heated meetings in the last 24 years, and especially the last 8 years. We've had some tough. We've been up here some nights 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, but we've accomplished things. But you know one thing I learned? In order to agree, sometimes you got to disagree. And we do that. But when at the end of the day, we are working for the citizens of this city, we come up with great strategies to make sure that this city moves forward. So I want to thank every member of the city council that's sitting around this table, every staff member in this city hall tonight, and every individual that works for this city. I want to thank them, because without good people, this city would never move forward. So I thank you. I could tell you, I could sit up here and talk for another hour, but I'm gonna cut it short. But my heart is heavy. My heart is heavy. I'm leaving what I love. I love the people of this city. I love to serve this city, and I will continue to be around. So again, I want to thank each and every one of you for your support. Thank you.
as I said, a voice for the voiceless. So next, I'd like to ask Councilmember Marvin Wagner from District 5 and his wife, Carol, and any other family or friends y'all have, please come forward. Councilmember Wagner was first elected to City Council in 2011 and has spent the last 8 years working to build and maintain relationships across differences within this body and across our city. This group, this council, is regularly tasked with making critical decisions that impact the day-to-day lives of thousands of residents and citizens in our community. And as would be expected, those decision-making processes can somewhat be contentious. As Councilmember Lewis just said, sometimes we have to disagree for a little while before we can agree. But during those discussions particularly, Councilmember Wagner has always been a real asset. His ability to understand and recognize different perspectives of an issue and work to bring opposing sides together to some compromise. And it's one that I've genuinely appreciated during my time here serving alongside him. So thank you, Councilmember Wagner, for your years of service on City Council and your steady leadership of Charleston District Number 5. Councilmember Wagner.
All right, I guess they have better memories than me, but I've got a couple notes written down on the back of a piece of paper, no less. Just a couple because I don't want to forget anything, but that happens sometimes. You know, been here for 8 years. That's kind of a unique thing. When we first started, we just redistricted. There'd always been a District 5, but not with the territory which I got, which was Johns Island, which is a 60 square mile island, and about half of it or a third of it belongs to the city, the rest is the county. And then we get to start up at Walker Road and go to almost the end of the world out there. And then we hang a right down Bees Ferry and go all the way to Walmart and everything to the left. So I ended up about 90 square miles of people. And, but that's okay, because I enjoyed keeping the economy flowing with the purchase of gasoline, because that's what I do. I ran simply because a good friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Larry Shirley, who had done, I think, about 22 years here in council, came to me and he said, hey, there's a new district and we can't find anybody to run. Would you like to run? Guess what I said? Maybe a bad thing to say to my friend, because it's cost me about 30 hours a week ever since. And, but bottom line is, it's been worth every minute of it. Because we've done some stuff, and as the mayor said, every now and then we butt heads, but not because we didn't like one another, it's because there were genuine things that needed to be head-buttoned over, in my opinion at least. Maybe not so much in his, but in mine. It's been fun. It's been rewarding. And, you know, we've fought 526 for 30 years before I got here and all 8 years I've been here. Right now, we don't have to fight because it's in the courts. That's where it's at. Somebody else is going to have to make that final decision. And then whoever, the warring sides apparently will have to accept whatever happens there. Major accomplishments. A lot of y'all were there the day that Joe got up on that little machine and took the first swipe at the backside of the gill yard and about knocked him off with the repercussions of it. Saw the same thing happen to another mayor over in Northbridge, but we won't call his name. But Biggest accomplishment, I guess, since I've been here is the Gill Yard. 526, well, at least we're on the positive side of the 526 issue now. We've got the Waring Senior Center, which happened because a group of us actually really fought to take some money and put it there. And it's one of the finest facilities we've built. We made tremendous strides in the affordable housing. We just cut a ribbon where we got the other items last week.
In your district?
In my district. Just like the one that's going to be part of the PUD that we announced right at the end of October. So we've got, 150 units on Johns Island, on high ground, that's not going to ever flood. And that's the other issue. We've fought just about every inch of the way to fight this flooding issue in Charleston. We came in, downtown, the crosstown, all of that had been just started good when we got here. And I say we, and I'm talking about Keith and Bill and I, came together. We learned together. I learned from them. I don't know if they learned anything from me, but, we all learned together. All in all, it's going by in a flash. On some days, darn, will this ever end? You guys know. Gary kind of alluded to it. Nights I wish I'd brought a pillow. Days I was hoping there was a Papa John's or something close by. But bottom line, it's been worth it, guys. I would tell you to do it. I came here at the age of 62 after I'd retired from civil service. Main reason I ran was very simple. And I told several people this before I ever signed up to run. It's time to give back. It's time to give back. You spend your entire life working, and you're almost too busy to stop and give back. Well, this is the best thing I could do to give back to anybody. Now, every step of the way, from the military, from the Vietnam era, 2 kids, 4 grandkids, one thing's been constant in my life, and it's standing right here beside the mayor. That's her name is Ellen. Beside her is her sister, Sandra, who, and my nephew, Brett. Sandy and I, Sandy's husband and I were shipmates back in about 1971, I guess. We brought him home, and that's the way it was. It was just the way it was. Ellen, one day, we were playing a little football game in the rec center out at the base. And she said, "Isn't that a cute little fella? He'd be perfect for Sandy." Okay. She's never wrong. Trust me. Come February, we'll be together 50 years. Officially. We've already passed 50 before that. But we've been together a long time. And I've got one more chance, though. I hear it all the time. Just one more chance, boy. That's why I'm always in fear when I'm here, guys. I think what I'm going to say to you guys right now is, first, Merry Christmas. And going back to the naval roots, we will always say, fair winds and following seas to all of y'all. And with that, my last statement is, happy birthday, Bill.
And last but certainly not least is Councilmember William Arthur Moody Jr. Bill Moody, District 11. Bill, would you and your family please join me on the platform, please? A council member of the City of Charleston for 8 years, the chair of the Real Estate Committee, former chair for years of the Ways and Means Committee. He's represented the residents of District 11 on this council since his election back in 2011. And for those 8 years, he's been a voice of common sense, y'all. Common sense and reason. We've navigated through some pretty tough issues and has always stood up for the interests of the citizens that he represents. With a district that straddles both West Ashley and James Island, and therefore he faces different sets of issues, Councilmember Moody has had his work cut out for him, but he's always stepped up to the plate and fought for what he always believed was right for his citizens. So thank you, Councilman Moody, for your commitment to public service and all you've done in the last 8 years to improve the quality of life in this city of Charleston.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the opportunity to make a few comments. First of all, I appreciate my wife and children, wife Audrey, Allison, my daughter, Brantley, my son, and my other son. I'm sure he's looking down on us wondering, boy, I don't know how you got here, but anyway, my son Brian, who was also a public servant. I want to make a few points. Number one, I don't want anybody to feel sorry for Bill Moody. Over my career, I've run into many obstacles and challenges and disappointments in my life, but my faith reminds me that I'm not in control of anything, and that I've always found myself in a much better place and a much better condition after these challenges. I'm reminded of Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 5, verse 16 and 18, and I'll quote it. It says, "Always be joyful, never stop praying, be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you who belong to Christ." So, to harbor any regrets or animosity or try to place blame would have me assume that I know better than God. So I hope all of you that may be in this same position sometime leaving will be comforted in that knowledge. There's a Yiddish expression, this I don't know if my successor is here or not, but he's Jewish. There's a Yiddish expression that says something about man plans and God laughs. And so that's kind of where we are here. Secondly, it's been my honor and privilege to serve the citizens of District 11 and to serve with each of you. And I'm especially grateful for my friend Keith Ware. He even wore a bow tie tonight. I didn't know that was coming, but I come in and here's Keith with a bow tie on. Several years ago, Keith and I spent every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Together with another group of citizens working on school district problems. And I learned so much from that group and so much from Keith. And then now to have 8 years on working on city issues, it's just been a thrill. So I thank God every day for him blessing and putting Keith and his family with my family these last 8 years. We've had a great run. So third, any success that I may have had would have to be credited not of my own doing, but the incredible efforts of the city staff. And I look around here and I see all the people, and some have already said and mentioned it, what an incredible staff we had, how they make us look so good, and I will never, never forget you guys. And likewise, I need to thank my Tuesday morning coffee group. A couple of them are here tonight. And I This group has really kept me informed of what's going on in the neighborhoods, but more important than keep me informed, they kept me humble. They never let me get too full of myself that, this position that I had. So I'm thankful to them for that effort. So finally, the Moody family wishes you a blessed and joyous Christmas. To my successor, my colleagues, all the staff, I just wish you a happy, healthy, prosperous, and successful 2020. And thanks for this opportunity.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can we go ahead and sing him happy birthday too while he's up there?
And it's his birthday, y'all.
Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bill. Happy birthday to you. Tomorrow. So a little off script, and speaking of the Tuesday morning coffee group, I did have a special request from a constituent wanting to thank a couple of outgoing council members that she had worked with, and we talked and expanded that to call on a citizen to give a thank you to our outgoing council members. I'm going to call on Carmen Nash to come forward and make a presentation. Carmen.
The mayor invited me here tonight to present the outgoing city council members with a gift of recognition for their service. But before I do that, I just have to say, who is the greatest? We are the greatest. Are you sure? Yeah, positive. Yeah, all right, all right. I love Ranky-Tanky. So on behalf of the citizens of Charleston, I will present each of the outgoing members with a hurricane lantern etched with the phrase, "There's no place like Charleston." A hurricane lamp is designed to protect the light within it so that it shines on clear days as well as in blustery and even stormy conditions. I envision the role of City Council and each member on it in a similar way. Each member is tasked with protecting the light of Charleston and carrying it forward as best they can. This is not an easy job in any city. And because there is no place like Charleston, the challenges and rewards of protecting the light of this great city are special and unique. We are all in this room tonight because we love this place and the people who live here. And now it is my great honor to recognize the 4 outgoing members for holding the light of Charleston in their own unique way during their tenure as City Council members. I honor each of you for all of the times you took the calls and answered the emails from the unknown person, the challenging citizen, as well as the cherished neighbor. I honor each of you for all of the times you really listened to and honored what people shared with you. And I honor each of you for all of the times you spoke up and took a stand because your heart told you it was the right thing to do, not only for yourself, but also for the people whom you represent. On behalf of the citizens of Charleston, I recognize and thank each of you for the work you have done as a City Council member. My hope is that when you turn on the light in this hurricane lamp, you are proud of the contributions you made as a City Council member, and know that in transitioning to being a citizen once again, your ability to hold the light of Charleston has not diminished, it has only changed form. Councilmember Lewis, if you would step forward to receive your gift.
And I certainly thank you again for this beautiful gift and this love leader for all citizens. That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember White, please step forward and receive your gift.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Wagner, please step forward to receive your gift. Councilmember Hughes, please step forward to receive your gift.
We have another. Yes, Councilmember Shea. Councilmember Shea.
So,
I guess since he's mayor pro tem.
right. So, thanks to Councilmember Moody, who reminded me of one of my jobs as mayor pro tem was to collect some funds from you guys to present the mayor with an annual Christmas present. So I did something a little bit different this year. And you certainly have a gift certificate from Berlin's, but Mayor, I bought you 2 books. One at the recommendation of Jacob, and another that I thought you would enjoy reading. You may want to open both of those along with your other present from Berlin.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs.
Yeah, a classic book on planning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I thought you would enjoy reading this one as well.
All right. Terrific. Leadership in Turbulent Times by Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Merry Christmas, Mayor.
Thank you.
Councilmember Shea. I think Chloe's trying to get a picture.
Well, thank you.
Enjoy your procession, that's what it did too.
Thank you. So this is just an aside, but I was a student at Georgetown University, and Doris Kearns Goodwin and her husband Richard lived just a few blocks away, and they had dogs in the home, and a good friend of mine got to know them, and we would dog sit for the Goodwins at their home when they were out of town, which was often. So anyway, I got to know the Goodwins, and they were an incredible couple and obviously a talented writer. So next, we have our public hearings, and we first up have a zone map change for 52 Kennedy Street. I think Mr. Morgan will come forward and make brief presentations about each of these matters. I ask citizens, when you come forward, to please keep your remarks to the pertinent to the item that's being presented, and please state your name and address, and a limit of 2 minutes, please, per speaker on each of these items. We will have our regular citizens participation period in a little while, during which time you can speak about any item you'd like. Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We have some slides here for you. It'll be up in just a second.
Is this a new screen? Something looks different.
Here we go. It's sharp. Okay. All right. So, first item, 52 Kennedy Street in the west side. This is a request to change the height district in this location from a 2.5-story height district to a 3-story height district. It is a site that is going to be developed for affordable housing. So you see the little tag that meets the definition of our affordable workforce housing programs. And we're going to have that whenever you have items in front of you that are dealing with affordable housing. This came before the Planning Commission and was recommended for approval by a 3-2 vote. I'll show you some images from the area. This is our comprehensive plan map that shows it in the urban area. Oops, this is an aerial, oh shoot, there we go. An aerial photo showing you Kennedy Street, which is north of the Septima Clark Parkway. We get a little bit closer here. You can see the lot. The subject lot has an old foundation in it. There would be a new structure built here. One of the reasons for the request for extra height is because of the low nature of the land that this would be built on, so it can be elevated above a parking level. And here you see it a little bit closer in the context of the street. And we have an image here. It's the property on the right that has the old foundation on it. And you see a street view here. So again, Planning Commission and staff recommend approval of this request to change the height district from a 2.5-story district to a 3-story district.
All right, would anyone like to be heard on this matter? 52 Kennedy Street. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Andrew Gould. I'm the project designer for the affordable housing building that will go here. In brief, the problem that we have is that the land is only 6 feet above sea level, so we lose an entire story of buildable area just to a raised basement. And then furthermore, because the lot is long and narrow, in order to have a maneuverable driveway and parking on the site, it limits the building width to only about 17 feet, which is simply too narrow to make a half-story work. There's no way to get staircases up in there for a multi-unit apartment building. So essentially, the 2.5-story zoning leaves us only one habitable story, which is quite inadequate. This lot has to have an affordable housing structure built on it. Its former owner was a nonprofit organization that had intended to build affordable housing there. That organization went defunct, but had put a deed restriction on the property limiting it to affordable housing. So the current owner is essentially obliged to put affordable housing on there, and it's more or less geometrically impossible to make it work after the new height district zoning was enacted, recently limiting it to that 2.5 stories. We were hoping that the Board of Architecture review would grant us an additional half-story of height based on architectural merit, but the board members essentially told us they thought it was inappropriate to use that provision for affordable housing. Imagine that. So planning staff actually requested that we ask for this rezoning in order to provide a path forward to keep the project viable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard on this? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Mohammed Idris. Ladies and gentlemen, council. Charleston is becoming a little New York. A whole lot of councilmen are leaving. So the new councilmen, most of the time, don't know what the voting issue was before. Now, they have been telling us for years that they were going to build, the building was going up no higher than 3 stories. And the next thing we know is 24 stories, 16 stories. And they'll always come in and saying it's for the poor people. They use the condition of the poor people. They get the building. And then after 5 or 6 years, they've kicked the poor people out and started raising the rent. And the poor people have to move on the other side of Mount Pleasant Street, go to the north area. Now they're saying they're going to be 2.5 story high. Most likely, some of you will not be here. But these buildings will go up more like 10, 12, 14, or 16 stories high. They have been doing this here for years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard? If not, it comes to council. Any discussion? All in favor, please. Oh, Councilmember Griffin.
Why, I'm just wondering why the vote was 3-2. Do you have any insight into that?
I think that there were a couple of folks from the neighborhood that came to the Planning Commission public hearing that had some concerns, and so some of the planning commissioners were reacting to that concern that was displayed at that meeting.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. That makes me think that maybe we should put on the record the rule about elevation if it's below the base. I thought that they were able to raise up to get to the height, and then automatically the 2 stories would follow from the agreeable height.
there's a certain level you can do that, but if you have a full story beneath for parking area, which is what was going to happen in this instance, that counts as a story.
Okay. So if they'd made it another 6 feet above, they would have been...
Potentially.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, number 2, Mr. Morgan.
Okay, this is at 80 Alexander Street, and I'll turn to this. This is just north of Calhoun Street. It is adjacent to a site that a new hotel is under construction at Calhoun and East Bay, and as part of the property owner's commitments to the neighborhood when that hotel was going through its approvals, there was the promise to convert this property from general business zoning to DR2F, which is a residential zoning that more closely matches the surrounding neighborhood. So this is coming to you with a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. It's in an area that is a urban core location, and you can see here the site is adjacent to where there used to be a Starbucks and the other facilities of the digital card that are now gone, and the hotel is under construction around it. And I'll show you some images from the street. You can see it's a historic structure here that had been used for office space in the past and will be residential into the future. And both staff and Planning Commission recommend approval of this change.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? We have a motion to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Number 3.
Okay, this is relates to a text amendment to the Daniel Island zoning text. Oops, here we go. It's a relatively minor series of changes that relate to some of the still unbuilt out properties on Daniel Island. They also relate to communication towers. Planning Commission actually had a comment in reference to the communication towers aspect that they not be located in or be restricted from being located in marsh area, which is typically not happening, but that was a comment from the Planning Commission. But the other text amendments relate to indoor athletic facilities and also impervious surface lot coverage for some of the remaining unbuilt on lots on Daniel Island, and Planning Commission, with that one exception about the towers and not being in the marsh, felt comfortable with this, and staff has been comfortable with these amendments, has been working with the Daniel Island Company on these, and has recommended approval for these.
All right. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter regarding Daniel Island zoning amendment? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is James Wilson with the Wobble Bond Dickinson Law Firm, here with Mr. Matt Sloan on behalf of the Daniel Island Company, just to explain these couple of amendments. The first one, it simply allows indoor and outdoor athletic facilities. The Daniel Island Master Plan already allows outdoor, and part of the city's plan and intention for Daniel Island is to also have indoor facilities. The second one is to allow communications towers. So this is something that residents have asked for better coverage, and all of the self-service there has kind of been attached to existing structures like the tennis center facilities, and there's need for some more. So this simply applies the existing city zoning ordinance provisions allowing for communications towers to Daniel Island. And then thirdly, there is a change to the impervious surface lot coverage in the Daniel Island Business Park. This is one area at the very end of 7 Farms Drive. And this relates to the fact that this area has now been sort of master planned with a central storm drainage system as opposed to doing it on individual lots. And so this change enables that central system rather than individual lots. That's a quick overview, but obviously we'd be very glad to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you very much.
So I have a question, if you don't mind. So the recommendation by the Planning Commission was to disallow the cell towers from being placed in the marsh, correct? And so what we would vote on here tonight includes their recommendation to disallow that, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. In what you see before you, that restriction has been added to the ordinance to be 100% clear. That was never the intent, but Planning Commission did ask just for total clarity on that, so that is in fact already included in what's before you this evening.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from council? We had a motion on the floor, correct? Yes. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Any?
I think we started it and we stopped.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Councilmember White, Councilmember Shealy with a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is an amendment to encourage the development of workforce housing in the opportunity zones. And this amendment has received 2 hearings in front of our CD committee. The committee motioned to amend it so that it would prevent developers from paying the fee in lieu, which exists currently in the MU workforce housing provisions. This was unanimously endorsed by Planning Commission. So what is before you tonight is an amendment that imparts to commercial zoning districts the characteristics of MU zoning without the ability to pay the fee in lieu within opportunity zones for a qualified opportunity fund. So the effect of this is to encourage the development of workforce housing in the opportunity zones. And obviously staff recommends approval.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir.
Anthony Bryant, Dr. G, based on the finding of facts. Talking about Planning and Enabling Act, 629-530, which is a public hearing right now, 629-17, the zoning ordinances you're talking about, 629-736, nonconformities, 629-770, government entities. Reason why? The opportunity zones does not have any measurable, anything measurable, like HMDA figures. Home Mortgage Disclosures Act has figures based upon race, census tracts, and use of it. They don't have it. You can't even measure it. So what's going on in the General Assembly right now, I think a representative is bringing forth some type of, to measure this particular situation. I'm going to put on the record right now a document for all the census tracts, which is used to compete for grant dollars and money in the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals. This is DOT, the water company. None of these people have any real measurement here. None. This is a federal program with no measurement. None whatsoever. You wouldn't know if they putting money in, coming in the community. You wouldn't know nothing. That's why I'm totally against it, and it's a waste of time.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard on this matter? Hearing none, it comes to council. Is there a motion? Motion to approve. And a second. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate Mr. Bryant's petition to us in this public hearing matter. I have to agree that I do feel like the federal law has been put into motion prior to having the thoughtfulness of how it's going to be regulated and enforced to the level of accomplishing the goals that is stated by the sponsors in Congress. But I do think we should make it clear to the citizens that we're trying to basically frame up a requirement that we have no control over. Opportunity zones have been put on every state, and then every state has been tasked with establishing these zones. And so we're here in this quandary of knowing that we have opportunity zones, that investors are free to propose for redevelopment or new development in order to take advantage of the incentives that the tax law allows at the congressional level. It's a federal tax credit. So I feel like we really have done a good job on the Community Development Committee in not rushing to judgment about how we could actually make this into something that we could be proud of, at least on the local level. So to that extent, I do feel proud that we have done our work. I wish that the law overall had been more finely grained to actually accomplish the mission that I know the sponsors set out to accomplish. I look forward to seeing what the results are, because I don't think it's going to prove itself to be a worthy product to accomplish those goals. But in the meantime, I do support that we have done the best we can do to make it pertinent to to the goals that we have for affordable housing in the city. So
Thank you.
I do support it.
Councilmember Mitchell, and then Lewis.
Yes, that's one of the things that Mr. Mayor and Council, what we did on the community development when we had to coming back and forth to us. When it first came out, I didn't agree with it at all, with the way they had it planned, because when we first heard about it, I thought it was going to act the same way as we had a program here years ago. But when the federal government came and some of our even state senators voted on it, they seemed to throw a brick against us and put it in certain areas that we didn't need it to be. We thought it was going to be in the areas that was blighted areas and like the east side and different other places. But when we heard about it again, they changed it and have it in places that really, to me, don't even need it. So we pondered with it a while and we came up with another ordinance and try to make sure that we can do something, use it in some type of way. So this is why this ordinance is coming up from the community development, that we made some changes and tried to put it in it that we can have some affordable housing in those particular areas that we don't want a person to come up and use it just to get into it and don't build affordable housing in the area. So that's why we are having this particular ordinance place and trying to make some changes and see what happened down the road. So if we have to make changes later, we can probably go back and try to do that again and make changes to this ordinance, but we have to put something in place because of the time is at essence with this, so we have to do something and need to do it now. So that's why we are bringing this forward.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Lewis, then Gregory.
I applaud the city for trying to come up with ways
Please turn your mic on. Yeah.
for ways to get affordable housing, but I was against the opportunity zone from the beginning. Because if you look at the way this zone is drawn, it's drawn for the rich folk. It's drawn for the developers. It's nothing for the neighborhoods that the district is on in. Because if you look any way north of Columbus Street, all the development that's going on down there, it's been going on. So it's just another level of funds to help the rich developers get their properties and get tax break, but it's not benefiting the neighborhoods that surround this opportunity zone. So I applaud the city for trying to do something, but I just don't think we'll have anything out of it.
Thank you. Councilmember Gregory, and then Seeking.
Yeah, mine's just a question. What's the sunset provision in that law?
In the Opportunity Zone law?
It's 20% of the housing is required to be workforce for a period of 25 years.
And what's the sunset provision of the law itself? Will it go beyond this year?
Are you referring to the opportunity zones themselves, the federal ordinance? I'm not aware of the nature of the federal ordinances. I couldn't speak to that.
6 months, okay. I thought it was December.
Well, what we have been aware of is that there is an initial offering which exists that is in fact active during the course of this year. My understanding is that a developer who is building under that can apply within a certain time frame, but they have to have begun their project during the course of this calendar year in order to qualify for that first run. But again, I'm not an expert in that, so maybe
that's the clarification I wanted. Thank you.
Oh, and I believe that it depends on how long you hold the property.
Correct.
You get some benefit if you hold it so many years. You get the maximum benefit, I believe, if you hold it for 10 years.
That's correct.
Councilmember Seeking.
So that kind of goes to my question. Designated qualified opportunity zone, is that something that goes through a process, or does the statute itself actually designate certain areas? How do I know if I'm a citizen of Charleston, if I walk out my door, where to find a designated qualified opportunity zone? Thank you. Okay, that's it.
There it is.
Got a map.
So it's all on the peninsula?
That's correct.
Mr. Mayor.
We requested other areas, but this is what we got
That's
back.
what we got back from them?
From the governor's office.
Are you, can I just follow up, Mr. Mayor? A lot of that's undeveloped land, right? A good bit of it.
A lot of it is in what we call a gray field state, previously used as industrial land, but a lot of it is primed for redevelopment.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, when they first came about and started talking about the opportunity zone, when it first came about, they was talking about it, that it was going to be close to the enterprise zone. And that's what the city here and the community development we thought it was going to be that way until they made some changes. And when the changes came, it wasn't nothing what we thought it was going to be. You see, and that was the problem with this opportunity zone. And we thought it was going to be the same way as the enterprise zone, being the areas that really needed it and be able to receive these funds, if you may. But that's not the case. And the federal government did it, and then we had, like I said, we had some of our own senators that didn't even look at it to try to push it, to try to help us with these things ourselves. So, that's what it is.
Further questions, comments?
One more.
Councilmember Gregory.
Councilman Mitchell just brought up something, enterprise zones. Is there any relationship to empowerment zones and enterprise zones?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
I was just learning earlier this evening from the attorney that's representing the IM that of course, all this was based on census tracts and demographic and income data 10 years old. And so a lot of this area has changed in a 10-year period of time. We're getting ready to do a census this April. I bet by the end of next year, if they redid the calculations, that some of this property wouldn't be eligible anymore. But apparently the eligibility for the opportunity zones did derive from the original, I think, enterprise zone criteria for those census tracts. Yeah. All right. So any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading and ratification, do we have a motion and a second for third reading? So moved. And a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Morgan.
Okay. This is Ordinance Amendment E5, which relates to adding a provision in the Folly Road overlay for 12-foot wide multi-use paths. And council had given this first reading a couple of months ago, and it went to Planning Commission in November. Planning Commission reviewed it, and staff gave some comments, and coming out of Planning Commission was a recommendation that I believe is in your packages for some amendments to the ordinance that related to keeping the 12-foot wide facility on the western side as recommended in the Rethink Folly plan, but going to an 8-foot wide facility in a 12-foot wide easement on the eastern side to cut down on the amount of impervious surface and to be more reflecting of the size of the lots on the eastern side, things like that, and also allowing for our design review board to look at placement of the facility and design of the facility as opposed to a zoning administrator, which the ordinance was actually copied from the town of James Island, and they don't have a DRB, and in our system, a DRB is the better entity to do that. So this was recommended approval from the Planning Commission with those changes, and it comes to you tonight in the public hearing forum.
All right. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter of Folly Road overlay? Ms. Zimmerman.
Thank you. Katie Zimmerman, Executive Director of Charleston Moves, and I also sit on the Rethink Folly Road Steering Committee. I just wanted to speak tonight in support of what's in front of you all. I think it's a smart idea to go ahead and set aside the 12 feet and then work within that, whether the path has to be that wide or not. We all know Folly is an incredibly uncomfortable road to walk or bicycle on to get to public transit stops on, and so any space that we can get redevelopment or new development to set aside and do their part to help us revamp Folly and make it a complete street is wonderful, especially as we as a committee struggle over funding improvements. It's great to get redevelopment to contribute to that. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard? Yes, sir.
This is Anthony Bryant. 629 1340, which would then be transportation and education to the council. The question under 629-780, BZA membership, variances, special exemptions, remand, stay, or determination made by administrative official. The question that I have, and that's not what you can answer, but it's a conflict between James Island's ordinance and your ordinance. So you have these like conflicts. How are they resolved within, what happens in the comprehensive plan? Is it a meeting of the minds and you come up with some type of compromise, or you just go with your own ordinance and just move forward in terms of the administrative decisions that you're going to be making regarding this particular zoning?
We collaborate with them wherever we can. Would anyone else like to be heard on this matter? Hearing none, it comes to council. Councilmember Gregory? Can we have a motion on the floor for discussion?
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Gregory and then Jackson. Microphone, please.
You know, I'm in support, but I'm just saying the addition of the east side numbers made it very confusing to me.
Okay.
But the other part of it is there's a section that, and it's the G, that talks about the multi-use path should be as safely designed as possible. I'd like that to be changed to shall be safe, not safe as possible. Because I think that's what we're looking for. So at a minimum, I'd like to see that language changed as an amendment. Let me show you where I am. I'm on the last page of the ordinance, and it's G, and I think if you go down 12 lines, okay, where it starts with the multi-use path shall. Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'd like to amend that.
Oh, there it is. That is G.
I'd like to amend that to the multi-use path shall be safe with good separation, et cetera, not safe as possible.
I'll second the amendment.
We have an amendment. Did we get a second to the amendment?
Yes.
All right. And I'll call on Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I put this forward as the council, our council's representative to the Folly Road Steering Committee. I do believe, as you said sort of quietly, that we do want to collaborate with the two main jurisdictions that are on James Island. The town of James Island is in the heart of this Folly Road overlay district between our two jurisdictions, and then the county sort of bookends or has intervening properties along the route. So it is in the spirit of cooperating that we have the Rethink Folly Road vision that is a tripartite document. Actually, it's a four-part document because the town of Folly Beach also signed on to it. They contribute to the implementation of the vision plan for improving Folly Road, and this will be a huge jumpstart to that, as well as they contribute funds, general operating funds, in order to fund the support for the implementation and the support of the steering committee. So I feel very happy that everyone seems to be on board with making these improvements in this amendment to our own Folly Road overlay ordinance. But I need to move for a deferral right now. The changes that came forward from the Planning Commission, I think, are detailed enough and sort of inserted in a time frame that the steering committee has not had a chance to look at and sort of work it out on a map to see what that would actually look like. They're going to have their bi-monthly meeting in January, so I would really appreciate it if we could defer this decision, knowing that we'll come back in January with a second reading version. I wouldn't think it would have to go to public hearing because it is the general goals of this amendment to create a multi-use path within a 12-foot wide build-out area that will be built by the property owners as they redevelop their properties over time. So that's the true thrust of this ordinance. And I think just the details that were added in at the Planning Commission, we should give the steering committee a chance to make sure that they like them, or they would rather have it changed in a more simplified format in the way that it actually came to us a while back.
Second.
Thank you.
So you want to you want to defer as opposed to giving second reading and waiting for third? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to defer. Councilmember Seeking.
Just very briefly, I wholeheartedly am in favor of what this seeks to do and getting it back. And I think Councilmember Gregory brought up where there is some more work need to be done. There's got to be some set of design guidelines or standards or something that we can put in there, because shall be safe is not a standard or a guideline. It is just a setup for failure, not for success. And so let's be a little bit more specific. I think you're on the steering committee, right?
We have our expert on the steering committee.
So
Yes, sir.
just don't bring it back with shall be safe, please, because I suspect our legal team will then start jumping up and down, and we'll have all sorts of conversation about it. So let's avoid that, please, and get that language a little more buttoned up.
Councilmember Shade.
A quick question. How does this work in conjunction with the idea of complete streets? Does anybody know?
It's consistent.
Is it consistent with the complete street?
Plan.
All right. Any further comments or questions? I have a motion to defer. Councilmember
I won't
Waring.
vote for the motion to defer, but I do have a question, Mr. Morgan. I know the goal is 12 feet, but if we got a developer that, for whatever reason, it works out that 10 feet would work, do they have to go through an act of Congress to go from 12 to 10?
It would go to the DRB and be part of their DRB review, which they'd be doing anyway for their buildings. So that's why we thought that was a good place, so they didn't have to add a BZA visit for something like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor to defer, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item is deferred until our next meeting. Number 6.
Okay. And this is sorry, got some extra slides in here. This is a fairly minor amendment to our zoning ordinance from our legal folks that Mr. McQueenie had discovered that there were a couple of different definitions in our zoning ordinance for single-family detached dwelling and single-family attached dwelling, and this gets them consolidated to be consistent throughout the ordinance. And this was reviewed by Planning Commission and approved 5-0.
All right. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir.
Planning and Enabling Act is Anthony Bryant. Planning and Enabling Act 629, 736, I believe, nonconformities. Okay, the 1931 ordinance that you're talking about on Thursday, I want to be clear on this. In 1931, I want to be clear, there was no fair housing law. There was restricted covenants, 1931. There was no, the Post and Courier made a statement in terms of there's no real data in terms of the effects on women and minorities. Look at the HMDA figures from 1970 to 2000, and you see the HMDA figures and the census tracts we're talking about right now in modern times that change every 10 years. So I understand the language you're using, but the premise of this city is based on the 1931 ordinance. It's exclusive in nature.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard on this matter? Hearing none, it comes to council. We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Number 7.
Okay. This is a recent annexation at 320 Woodland Shores on James Island. The request is for zoning of SR1. It was R4 in Charleston County, and SR1 is the closest compatible district to that. It was recommended for approval by Planning Commission.
Would anyone like to be heard on this matter regarding 320 Woodland Shores Road?
Move for approval.
We have a motion to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Number 8.
Okay. This is another recent annexation. This is on Brickyard Road on Johns Island. It's a 2-acre tract. It was annexed in November, and it would be zoned RR1, rural residential. It was actually R4 in Charleston County, so it's a little bit lower density by virtue of coming in the city than it was in Charleston County. Planning Commission recommended approval as well.
All right. Would anyone like to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, it comes to council. We have a motion to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So thank you very much. That's the end of our public hearings for this evening. Next is the approval of our city council minutes from
November 12th and November 26th minutes.
Got a motion to approve in a second. Any deletions, additions, comments? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our citizens' participation period. We have about 20 folks who have signed up to speak to us this evening. We try to keep it to 30 minutes. So I'm going to ask we keep our remarks to 90 seconds each. And please state your name and address. Madam Clerk will call out 3 or 4 or 5 at a time. If y'all would just kind of queue up, and we look forward to hearing your comments.
Okay, we'll start with Anthony Bryant, Arthur Lawrence, James Rice, Jackie Meany, I think that's right, and Muhammad Idris.
I was at Charleston County Council's meeting, and Sheriff Cannon kind of let me know the legal description that I am, Anthony Bryant. It's the worst legal description you can have. It's 6th in the nation in error by the Attorney General of South Carolina. I dissent anyway. In 2010, we were concerned about air, ground, and water quality within the community. The Federal Bureau of Investigations, Homeland Security, and other agencies totally overlooked these issues in terms of the African-American community, and I believe that they want to permeate whatever they want to permeate in our community with behaviors of our young people and children so they can incarcerate them in federal and state prison. That's my belief. And so I submit all this for the record. And my final comment, I won't be making much comments when this is all over, because I'm going to be working on this issue with the feds and the state of South Carolina in terms of treating African Americans like they're third-class citizens to this very day. That's going to be my work. That's all I'm working on being a real brother to the day I die. Always be a brother, unapologetic black man forever, unapologetically black. That's what I am. I make no apologies for it. I'm not trying to be president, U.S. senator, congressman. I just want to be a brother. Thank you.
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. I wish all the outgoing council members Godspeed. And I'm Arthur Lawrence, and I live at 210 Fishburne Street. And when I look around this historical building, I only see 2. When I go through the city, I hardly see one, or none. It took 90 years for those doors to open up. I alluded to that last week. St. Julian Divine was the first African-American came through those doors. We have to be very careful of what's happening to council. Female, we naming everything after male. There are only 2 on the wall. You have Councilman Brenda Scott with 23 years, nothing. And she came in 75 after Reconstruction with other council members. You had other female, Councilman Yvonne Evans, Councilman Hilda Jefferson. We have some fantastic female that serve on this council. The city has to do better with a dominated male council. We need to recognize those female and do the same thing as you do for the male, for these female, and recognize them right away. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, I'm James Rice. I'm the recently elected president of Historic Ansonboro Neighborhood Association. I live at 55 Lawrence. I'd first like to thank the mayor and city council members for your thoughtful and diligent work on the changes made to the construction noise ordinance. Hannah, as our neighborhood association is known, thinks this draft is more consistent with other historic cities in the eastern U.S. In general, Hannah thinks the only exceptions to the current ordinance relate to public safety. Any other exceptions are dealt with by means of a special permitting process. We have submitted a paper containing our suggested amendments to the mayor and to the city council members, and we hope you will take them into consideration. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jackie Meany. I live at 34 Hazel Street, and let me say first that I am in support of Historic Ansonboro Neighborhood Association's proposal that they put forward to you, because I think it would make the Charleston's construction noise ordinance better. But I am here specifically tonight to speak to holidays. It would be great if we could take some of the city's observed holidays and add those to days not allowed for construction. We call ourselves the Holy City, yet we are going to allow construction on some of our greatest holidays. I suggest we don't allow liquor stores to sell liquor on Christmas. Why don't we flip that? Let the liquor stores stay open, no construction on Christmas, because I can tell you that, first of all, I don't care if my neighbor is drunk on Christmas as long as he's not using a chainsaw. So I hope that you will take that into consideration as you look at the noise ordinance and include 4 or 5 days of city-observed holidays.
Are you proposing a toast?
I might be if you open up those stores on Christmas. Thank you. Thanks very much for your consideration.
Mohammed.
Mayor, City Council, I know a whole lot of you fellas are travelers, you're Shriners, Masons, and you're supposed to be telling the truth. You know it. I love how you talk. You talk most like Obama. I speak like Donald Trump. I'm direct. So when you got a half a minute to speak, you ain't got too much time to say it. So I call him a crook. No, I'm just using the language. You say a trickster, the same thing. But they jump on me, but being that you wearing a bow tie with your partner, they don't bother y'all, but they bother Muhammad all the time. Understand what I mean? I'm not talking about you, sir. I know you're a young man. You just got here. Yeah, but I pray and we thank the councilman who, y'all did a wonderful job. The best council we have had in the city of Charleston. Y'all did an excellent job. Keep the work up. Keep the work up, and may God continue to bless you all and have a happy, merry, merry holiday and a nice new year. But don't shoot the gun at nobody. Shoot it up in the air.
Okay, now we will have Diane Hamilton, Luke Daniels, Whitney Raniero, Ken Poteet, and Chris Williamson.
I am Diane Hamilton, 1219 Forbes Avenue. First, thank you for receiving our detailed letter earlier today. I'm speaking tonight in reference to a request made to Dominion Energy to deliver electricity to Tomb Ghost Island via Mamie Street in Ashleyville. Our concern is with the lack of communication about the project and the environmental impact on Old Town Creek, how the project would exacerbate the existing problem with the dying marsh reed and the treatment of a burial ground. The island is labeled a subdivision composed of 2 lots. One of the lots is located inside of Ashleyville. Why is Brown Cemetery protected by state law and Ghost Island is not? Thank you for continuing to support people, neighborhoods, and the quality of life for the persons who live in all parts of Charleston. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Samuel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. My name is Luke Daniels. I am the president of Charleston Village Association and past president of Charleston Place. And livability in our neighborhoods and homes is deteriorating. Construction noise across the street late into the night. Construction noise 3 blocks away late in the night. Being woken up at 3 a.m. by heavy cement trucks. Lights so bright shining in your windows all night long. I know a family who was speaking to me the other day. They had to buy blackout curtains. It's all over the city. Whether you're downtown, midtown, James Island, Daniel Island, East Side, West Side, West Ashley, it's all over. It just doesn't matter anymore. I spoke to a family the other day. They're moving, after being here for 15 years, to New York City. You'd think the noise would be bad there, but they actually have a very strong noise ordinance. Please pass this ordinance right away. And let's not wait 6 months. Let's make it active immediately. We support the Historic Anson Borough's letter. I want to thank you for returning livability back to Charleston, and I also want to thank the councilmen who are stepping down. Thank you for your service. Thank you, sir.
Whitney? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Whitney Ranero. I live at 27 Lord Ashley Drive. I'm here this evening to express my concerns about 5G and wireless radiation. After reading an exhaustive amount of literature on the topic of 5G, I am comfortable saying that this new technology is a cause for concern in regards to health, safety, privacy, and human rights. This new 5G technology has not been tested for safety, and the telecom industry has stated that they do not intend on doing any safety testing. In addition, the FCC guidelines used to set safety limits are outdated and were created prior to the generalized use of wireless technology. Children are especially vulnerable to wireless radiation due to their thinner skulls and the higher water content of their brains and their bodies. Scientists from all over the world have published studies documenting the adverse effects of wireless radiation, and the studies show clear evidence of cancer, DNA damage, cardiomyopathy, and neuropsychiatric effects. Many of these studies have been forwarded to you already. You will also each receive a flash drive containing interviews with 13 experts on the topics of 5G. I would like to request that you vote yes to amending this current small cell ordinance so that specified distances from schools, daycares, hospitals, public parks, and homes can be required. I would also like to see our city prioritize wired over wireless for the health, safety, and the welfare of our community. Thank you for your attention to this important issue.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Ken Poteet. I live at 27 Lord Ashley Drive. I would like to elaborate on some of the other concerns surrounding 5G. In addition to the health effects, the visual impact of these small cell devices should also be considered. I'm concerned about having so many additional poles holding small cell boxes over sidewalks and other public spaces, along with the sizable auxiliary boxes above ground. Some of these are installed and you can see them around the city. This creates visual clutter as well as safety risks. Added objects on sidewalks and public spaces would create obstacles and block sight lines for pedestrians, motorists, and those who use assistive devices, bikes and scooters. Protecting the parks and historic districts is also essential to preserving our historic architectural and cultural heritage, which is a foundational part of this region's economy. I would also like to mention a study published in the Appraisal Journal of the Appraisal Institute that showed a decrease in property value of up to 20% when a cell tower is located in close proximity to the home. The healthy solution is Ethernet internet connections. Not only is it cheaper to go wired versus wireless, but Ethernet is much more reliable and secure and will outperform Wi-Fi capabilities in data speed, signal quality, network expandability, and device adaptability. I would like to request that you vote yes to amending the current small cell ordinance so that specified distances from schools, daycares, hospitals, public parks, and homes can be required. I would also like to see our city prioritize wired over wireless for health, safety, and welfare of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Chris Williamson? Oh, okay. Thank you. Charlie Smith?
Good evening. I'm Charlie Smith from 333 Wapu Road. I'm here on the issue of the inappropriate development of what's referred to as Ghost Island off of Maryville. What's being done out there is highly inappropriate. This is absolutely not a property rights issue. It is a process issue. There are only 2 permits that have been issued for that property. One was for the dock, one was for the bulkheading. Everything else that's been done out there has been done illegally. Be turned into a fundraising venue, and that appears to be where we're headed with this property. We need to stop that. There are bodies on that still in the cemetery. There is a mass grave that has 25 sets of remains in it that were moved there the first week of May of 1906. They are still there. One of the sets of remains belonged to a man who served with George Washington at Valley Forge. I think we owe him better than to allow a septic tank drain field to be run into that graveyard. I hope that you all will give just some really thorough consideration of what has already happened out there and stop this development, and let's do the archaeological work that's required to determine exactly what is where out there and go from there and do what's appropriate for Maryville and for the island and for the cemetery and the descendants of the people who are buried there. Thank you.
Okay. Zach Sierens.
Good evening. My name is Zach Serens, and I reside at 11 Rutledge Avenue. I appreciate Council's efforts to prioritize infrastructure maintenance and curb rampant development in our historic city. These two issues were at the fore in our recent mayoral election, so I think we can agree that it needs to be addressed. With these issues in mind, I am here today to speak to you about the rapidly deteriorating condition of the road on Lockwood Avenue between Bufane and Chisholm Streets. This stretch of road is being gradually destroyed by the construction and delivery traffic at the new Sergeant Jasper development. Semi-trucks and other heavy machinery carrying asphalt, gravel, and other various construction materials pass in and out of the development site on a daily basis. And as they do, these building materials are dropped onto the public roadway, where they are ground into the pavement by both commercial and personal vehicular traffic, which has resulted in this particular stretch of road becoming essentially one long, jagged pothole. These scars in the asphalt take a heavy toll on the vehicles of local residents, and they exacerbate flooding in an already prone location. I understand that the beach company needs access to the site to complete construction, but this access should not come at the expense of local residents or the safety of our roads. It is for this reason that I, on behalf of my fellow residents, both south of Broad and in Charleston Village, ask you to have city staff immediately assess this situation and, in conjunction with the beach company as the developer, prioritize a fix to the roadway as soon as possible. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Cashin Drolet, Olivia Bedad, John Dix, John Carr.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. Cashin Drolet, Historic Charleston Foundation, 2 Craven Avenue. I am speaking to the construction noise ordinance, item number 9, under bills for second reading. We want to say thank you to Council for your attention to this important matter. Quiet enjoyment is certainly a key part of livability, and this ordinance goes far in accomplishing that. HCF does support the ordinance. However, we would ask Council to revisit the blanket time exemption for concrete pouring. Late night, early morning concrete pouring is troublesome to residents, and we feel that concrete pouring should be revisited. Perhaps there are some ways that we could look at some time and temperature engineering-driven regulations for limiting the time periods in which you can pour concrete. Thank you.
Okay.
Olivia Vedad, 420 Arlington. I'm here to speak about 5G. Assuming we all want good health for us and our children, and that we want our property to increase in value, I'm here for all of us because of the scientific and medical data that is more and more clearly illustrating that 5G is harmful to people and the environment. We all have access to case studies showing cancer and neurological effects due to EMF exposure. We have access to court cases that have been won in other countries and are being fought here in America against the harmful effects of cell tower radiation. There's a group of 26,000 scientists petitioning to stop 5G specifically, and that's just some of the expert data. We don't want to stop progress. We want the benefits of technology. We just don't want to decrease the quality of our lives and our children's lives in the name of progressing. We want progress in the right direction. Charleston may be small, but we are influential. If anything, we are hoping all of you will contribute to the butterfly effect. We are hoping that some tactful, maybe even small changes will be made to laws surrounding the towers and thus contribute to the protections being put in place here, like on top of this building and worldwide. I have some supportive data that I'd like to give to you, and I can also email it.
Time.
Thank you all.
Okay, Mark? Okay. All right, Mark.
There he is. What are you doing over there? Whoa! He switched sides.
Hey, got to change up occasionally. Oh, Mark Knapp. Here, number one, to tell everybody Merry Christmas and hopefully a Happy New Year. I seriously regret seeing these council members leaving because of such expertise that's going to be lacking on this board. But what even concerns me even more is, unfortunately, one didn't go that needs to go. So, but overall, I'm hoping the new council members actually do something. I do know that I'm a little tired of watching certain council members are so far up the mayor's rear that they can see daylight. But I really appreciate what you guys have done. You've worked hard. You've done an excellent job. I just wish you were still here next year. Thank you.
Okay, Josh Dix.
Josh Dix, Government Affairs with the Charleston Trident Association of Realtors. First, I'd like to say to Mr. White, Mr. Lewis, Mr. Wagner, Mr. Moody, it's really been a pleasure working with you all the past few years, and hopefully we can continue to work on other projects going forward. I want to speak really quickly about the fill ordinance, and our association supports the deferral of that ordinance and hope that we can continue to look at not only the stormwater manual as it comes out in January, but also take a real deep dive look at the Dutch Dialogue report and hopefully incorporate a lot of that message with the stormwater manual and marry those issues going forward. So I've enjoyed 2019 with everyone on council and hope you all have a good holiday. Thanks.
All right, I called out names. John Carr. Okay, John Carr, and then Morel, what is this? Oh, is this a Mark? Okay, close the K. All right, Brandenburg, and then Carla Morona?
I believe so.
Okay.
Okay. I'm John Carr, 1039 Main Street in Maryville, Ashleyville. I'm here to talk about Ghost Island. We didn't know until maybe 2 weeks ago that they were looking to put electricity on the island. Now, this island is a graveyard. I'm finding out that you got people from George Washington's administration buried there, and I know it's an ancient Indian burial ground. Now, I'm finding out since then that they want to put electricity in there so they can put a building, and we found out that they already put a septic tank there. Now, all septic tanks have runoffs. Where's it going? In the marsh or in the river? Either one is wrong. Okay. So we want to stop that electricity being put on the island. He already has a solar farm on there, and he already has a lot of other construction going on there. And the eyesore was that the wharf that he put in. It's so in the middle of that pristine marshland is bad. It's really bad. So we like to stop that building, see if there are any permits for all the things that he's done, and put a stop work to it, and turn that island back into something that can be on it.
Time.
Also,
Time.
okay.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm Mark Brandenburg of the horrible handwriting, and I apologize for that.
Thank you.
I live on Johns Island, and I just wanted to say thank you to Marvin Wagner and the other members of council that are retiring after this year. Y'all have been responsive to us on Johns Island, and we look forward to working with you, with the returning members and also the new members, and continuing to watch very carefully the growth that is occurring out there. And I'd echo my friend that I would ask you to look very closely at the Dutch dialogues as well. So thank you very much.
Carla.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Carla Mironov from 708 Goodlet Circle. I'm the president of the West Ashley Chamber of Commerce, but I'm here on behalf of the Small Cell Ordinance. I've worked since I was at least 14 years old, scooping ice cream, cleaning shower tiles with a toothbrush, scraping bubble gum off of school desks. I know how to work hard, but I'm not here to tell you about that. I'm blessed to be here tonight because I'm a breast cancer survivor. A year ago this week, I had my last chemo session, and since my diagnosis, I have had 7 surgeries, with 1 more coming. I've had 4 months of chemo, 6.5 weeks of daily radiation, and I will be on a rotation of medications and doctor visits for the rest of my life. And yes, I was bald, and I'm a hairstylist. Throughout my treatments, I continued to work while I was able. I own 2 hair salons, one in New York City and one here in Charleston, both of which I had to walk away from. During this time, not only did I lose my job security, but dozens of other employees of mine did as well. But I continue to work today, although now I work more than ever before to offset the financial impact of cancer on my family finances. You may wonder what this has to do with 5G. Well, I don't precisely know, but what I do know is that when I discovered my cancer, it was on a wellness journey, and I was walking around with my cell phone in my bra. You can laugh. It was in my bra, but it was in the exact same place where I discovered my cancer. So perhaps it's a coincidence, and perhaps it's not. But my cancer was found in that area. I'm asking you to consider very carefully these 5G towers. Thank you very much tonight.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Did we miss anyone? Well, thank you all for sharing your comments and being with us this evening. We really appreciate it. All right. So next order of business is our council communications, which is consideration for Corporation Council to research and prepare city council adoption of amendments to the small cell ordinance design guidelines requested by Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I appreciate the opportunity. Frankly, I owe a gratitude to Councilmember Griffin for initiating this time on our agenda. I do think it's very helpful for us to be able to talk about things in a more open-ended format, and then decide how to carry them forward into something that we would want to be responsible to accomplish. So I am asking my colleagues, gentlemen, to consider tonight requesting of our corporate counsel's office to amend the small cell 5G ordinance that we have currently in effect. And the way that I talk about that is just very simply. Right now, our ordinance, I think, is designed to protect our streets, our buildings, our historic district, the beauty of our city. But in the process of creating it, we were not really being educated at that point in time about how we could potentially put more protective measures to safeguard our people and our children in particular. And I literally have just been, trying to absorb the education that's out there. I first started thinking about this topic at the invitation of one of my constituents on District 12, Ms. Karen Beard, who's not here tonight. She's traveling. But she has literally taken upon herself to make her own goals, to be educated, to be informed, not to be inflammatory. She's not an alarmist. She has coordinated now her friends, her family, a growing number of people who are joining her in wanting to study this issue for the protective opportunities that I think we have. So I'm simply just putting this forward with your permission, with the mayor's approval, with Ms. Herdina's cooperative agreement to ask the corporate council to take our current ordinance, take some of the sample ordinances that are coming forward in other communities like ours. There's a couple in South Carolina and definitely several models that we can attach ourselves to. And I appreciate that Ms. Herdina has volunteered to actually meet with my constituent early on to give her advice about how to approach her advocacy on this. And then I think it was sort of a mutual agreement that this is an interesting topic that we really should be much more knowledgeable of in preparation for doing something that I feel is a responsibility of local government. My other sense of urgency about this, the state legislature, takes its seat in the middle of January in Columbia, and as they left their session in 2019, it's the carryover year, so they'll pick up where they left off in May or June of 2019, and there are two bills, one in the House, one in the Senate, that are pretty identical. They rest at the Judiciary Committee, as I understand, and they are designed to preempt localities' ability to make any changes to small cell location and any other, protective prohibitions that we might want to engage as a local government. That's a theme that I think we should have a whole workshop on, the preemptive movements that are prevalent all over state legislatures, and ours in particular is starting to get the fever of let's tell local government they can't do X, Y, and Z. That's happening with the plastic ban use, the vaping locations, so you name it, there's a lot of laws that we're now going to be trying to resist at the state level if we want to continue to do our jobs locally. But right now, I would just like to hear your agreement and give it to Ms. Herdina to study.
Any other comments, suggestions? Councilmember Griffin and Waring? All right. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The small cell ordinance came up through the Public Works Committee, and I agree with your concern, but I think it should go back to the Public Works Committee to consider whatever amendments, additional public hearing if you'd like, but instead of just going straight to legal will be there at Public Works to advise us on both sides of the issue. So I support your efforts, but I think we should do it through the confines of Public Works, even if we have a public hearing right here in the chambers. But,
All right. Okay, and could I interject also that I would kind of recommend we do two tracks here, because the Public Works Committee mostly addressed just the physical location and design and all like that. I would also, even though it's not a formal council committee, we do have a wellness committee, and I would like, which has the expertise of DHEC and medical doctors that serve on our wellness committee, and I would like for them to consider this matter also and send a recommendation back to council as well.
if they could present the Public Works as well, bring that information, even come together. Do a joint one, I don't have any trouble.
All right. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Councilmember Waring. I mean, I think any way that we want to get to a resolution of amending our ordinance would be, just fine with me. I think the more that it's available to public understanding and ourselves, obviously. I guess I was just thinking that there is a body of knowledge now that we can tap into. So I thought it would be better to have at least, we call it a checklist of protective measures that we might entertain to put in our ordinance that would come from the legal office, so that when we looked at them, that at least the legal staff had vetted them to think that they're defensible, and we would be ready to adopt them at that point. So that was sort of my thought of letting them give us a menu of options that we could put in that they would be happy to write into the ordinance, and then your committee could take it over. That would be great.
Corporation Counsel would like to be recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to pick up on that point. There is a legal question here that needs to be researched, and that is to what extent there's a 1996 Telecommunications Act that prevents, and frankly, this body from doing anything, potentially. It preempts the field. It leaves it to the Federal Communications Commission to regulate where these small cell poles and equipment can be located, and they also have set the standards on what level of exposure is harmful or not. So our hands are very tied here, but over the last year, there has been some action in the court since we passed the guidelines. Councilmember White brought this up at the first time when we were considering it, so I think legal needs to go back and just see what kind of running room we have in this area, because I think it's very limited at this point. So,
Councilmember Moody and then White.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going. It seems to me like we got this thing a little bit backwards. In my opinion, there's nothing to be gained from the second kick of a mule. If we don't have a lot of authority, and I'm thinking really about the Uber, we spent a lot of time on drafting and writing ordinances on Uber for the state to come in and just take it over, and all of our work was for naught. We need to educate ourselves. We need to be figuring out where the state might be going with this and what we can actually do before we start drafting any kind of ordinance that would be that we might like, because it might just be a waste of time, and that's just my sense of this.
Councilmember White.
And I like the idea of sending it back and letting the committee maybe keep an eye on it.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make a comment, and Susan alluded to this when we first had this item come through real estate. I don't think there's a lot of research. I know there's not a lot of research on it, and I'm not sure that anyone knows today what capacity 5G has to be detrimental to health of others. But it was something that was of concern to me, and my daughter, who is here this evening, is a mechanical engineer out of Clemson. She brought it to me originally, and sort of the discussion around it, early stage of this technology and what is occurring. And so when I found out from Ms. Herdina in real estate that we didn't really have a lot of options, we had already been sued, we basically were going to have to move forward. But I think anything that this body can do moving forward to help protect the citizens of Charleston, I would highly encourage it. Some of you may or may not know I've had cancer twice. I'm happy to say I'm 6 years clean, but anything that we can do to make sure that we're not proactively putting ourselves in harm's way, like smoking and other things, including small cell, we need to be making sure that we're doing that for our citizens. And I think it's important, and I'll say the other reason I was thinking about this the other day, I think I saw the first tower going up at the corner of Market and Meeting Street. And I was sitting there and I walked by it and I said, yep, I'm pretty sure that's a small cell tower. And what I can identify as I started to think about that was if I was sitting in that office next to where that tower was, I'd like to know exactly what my capacity from a health issue is to be in harm's way. Because my grandfather, who unfortunately passed away from mesothelioma, wasn't given that same option when he worked for the shipyard, and like many of his co-workers passed away from cancer. So I can just say that whatever this, I won't be here, obviously, but whatever this body can do as a going concern to protect our citizens, I would highly encourage you to do it. And I would applaud you for your work that you'll do in the future for that. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any other comments? So if it's a consensus of council, we'll ask legal to at least explore what other cities and jurisdictions have done that have passed muster, and we'll do a double track of including both the Public Works Committee and our Wellness Committee as well. Does that sound like a good path forward? Yes. All right. Well, great. Thank you very much. Next is our council committee reports. First up, Councilmember Waring is Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you see on your agenda, we had some acceptance and dedication of rights-of-way, AI, through 6, and I so move that they be approved. They pass unanimous on the committee.
Was there one that we were going to defer, that we deferred? Am I thinking about something else?
It was acceptance and dedication of rights of way.
That was the, it was something else.
Yeah,
that
I
was on
remember
the
it was
agenda.
something else,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. Items 1 through 6. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, I'm going to inform the council, as our committee members knew, we added the Tomb Island / Ghost Island to the agenda yesterday, and it was done unanimous and had a hearty discussion on it, and certainly sense of urgency for every committee member. That's not on your agenda. That was added to our Public Works agenda, and if, with your privilege and permission, I'd like to discuss that now, hopefully.
Yes, sir.
Some of the things that have taken place, for instance, that you heard from the public comment, was based on, I think, DHEC and OCRM for a dock permit. But if what we're hearing is true, now I haven't been there, but I stood in Mr. Carr's yard when there were heavy equipment over there clearing. So I saw land clearing taking place over there with my own eyes. If somebody's putting in a septic tank, why don't they have a site plan? I mean, that comes through TRC. I know every time we have to do something, we have to go through TRC. So first I wanted to know what is the zoning on that island? And we need to take some aggressive steps on changing the zoning on that island. And not just that island, there are a couple of other small islands out in the Ashley River watershed. Now, just for council members who are not familiar with it, this parcel of land sits, if you're looking from the Ashley River with your back to the Ashley River landward, it sits, the former town of Maryville, now called Ashleyville, most of it on that side, would be to your left, Charlestown Landing to your right, and I guess further down you go, you'd run into West Pawnee, and then Old Asham Plantation, what is now called Old Town, I think, part by Charleston County. So it's like a horseshoe. This little island sits there surrounded by pristine marsh, and Mr. Carr is right in that the marsh is dying over there. I mean, we've seen it. I think Clemson University has come out in an attempt to actually replant some of the marsh reeds. So if you can envision on a small island, not too much bigger than City Hall, well, it's a little bigger than City Hall, having a septic tank with a drain field, and one of the aspects to the dock is a jet ski landing on the dock. Now, anybody who's been fishing before, jet skis create a lot of activity. And this is a small creek. I mean, this isn't out in the river. The city of Charleston's been aggressive before in rezoning properties, but a stop work order of some sort needs to be had from the city of Charleston. The newly named Carl Richardson Park, you all may remember, there was some dumping taking place there. There was a building being torn down, and the landowner took the bricks and refuse into former town of Maryville, Ashleyville, and dumped it, as opposed to going to the landfill and paying fees. Well, as council members found out about that, we took pictures, Mr. Mayor, and at that time, Mayor Rowley was there, and obviously, when he saw what took place, immediately the city issued a stop work order. So it put everything on pause until we found out more. Long story short, we now know that, and I'll never forget a comment that Mayor Rowley made. He said, you know, this property, because later on it got put up for sale for potentially 10 buildable lots, Mayor Rowley said, you know, can you think about it, somebody building a house there, having a barbecue grill in the backyard, drinking a Bud Light, waving at the people on over at Charlestown Landing who's visiting the Adventure, the replica of the ship that founded the state of South Carolina. You literally can wave at, that's how close this property is. Well, this property is in a similar location, and you all also may remember when we wanted to put the Higgins Pier there, that came across an old railroad bed. And as I understood it, it was I think it's the Low Country Open Land Trust that owns the marsh around that area. This community needs help. And when I say this community needs help, Maryville, Ashleyville, West Pawnee, Charlestown, Landon, and indeed, quite frankly, the state of South Carolina, this small island should not be a place for fun and frolic. It should be a place for respect for those who came before, and certainly the history that's been stored there. So it's time for the city to act, and I know Councilman Shahid, I always want to pronounce his name correct. Shahid wants to comment on this because
I can't wait to read the minutes on this.
I know I want to read the spelling on this anyway. But anyway, so I know we've got some comment on this, but I hope we will act quickly.
Thank you. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Waring, for teeing all this up. And I want to thank Ms. Diane Hamilton and Mr. Charlie Smith, and who else was over here earlier? Donna Jacobs, of course, and Eva Joan Thomas, who's a neighborhood president for West Pawnee, for bringing this to our attention and all the background information about this island. So as Councilmember Waring has mentioned, this is an island. It truly is an island surrounded by creeks that's right next door. I mean, you can literally throw a baseball onto this island from Charlestown Landing, and it sits right in the middle between our new plant park of Carl Richardson and Charlestown Landing, and West Pawnee subdivision is right behind it, and it's literally right behind it. This island was used as a recreational spot for a lot of folks who would come by in the summer behind here, anchor their boats, hang around, and kids would swing off to the trees into the creek and back in here. So since then, the land has been cleared. There's a dock on the property. There's an alarm, so if you get too close to the dock, the alarm goes off. It has now become an uninviting location for folks who have enjoyed the water back there. Whatever the plans are for this, and we just all have been speculating of what the plans can be, but we know that if you're going to spend $500,000 on bringing power to this island, which we're speculating that's in the cards, you're not doing it for a shack. There's other plans that obviously are in place with this. We've got to protect this island. We've got to protect our assets, our vistas around this, because it's going to impact our citizens and our visitors and the folks next to Maryville, Ashleyville, and just the heritage that this island may represent. So I'd like to see what affirmative action we can muster on this as soon as possible. And getting power is one thing that's within the jurisdiction of OCRM and DHEC, obviously. But anything else that happens along this line, we need to be aggressive in stopping any future development with this property.
All right, well, Councilmember Wagner and then Lewis.
Yeah, just been in Public Works yesterday. There was one thing in the letter that was sent and that really disturbed me. Something about a 30 by 30 pit, 8 foot deep. That to me sounds just like a pretty fair-sized little graveyard. And I got thinking to myself, gee, I wonder why they call it Ghost Island. So I just got the feeling there's somebody in there doing some stuff they probably hadn't ought to be doing. So we need to figure out how to stop it pretty quick. And I mean, that's pretty much what the committee decided. Something's got to happen, and it's got to happen quick. Otherwise, all the evidence will be gone, apparently. If we can't get in there and do something. Hey, we could use a park. How about eminent domain? I'm being facetious, but you know what? That's probably the quickest, easiest thing that this council could do. But let's give the guys a chance to tell us what they're doing.
Right.
And then let's do it. But maybe, hell, I'm ready to go Thursday. We'll be back.
Councilmember Lewis.
We had a long discussion on this Saturday at the neighborhood meeting. And I think that the
planning department and building inspection department need to take a look at it and see if they violated any of our ordinances. We need to put a stop work order on any work on it, and it needs to be done immediately.
And we will. So let me just assure council, both planning and building inspections are already on this, researching what we received, mostly what we haven't received, because many of the things that have been done to date are not within our jurisdiction, but there are certain things that we can do, and we're exploring all those things, and we will be, no pun intended, digging in on this. There's this talk about this guy who really knows where everything, the lay of the land, knows where all the bodies are buried. This is definitely one of those places, right? So, with all due respect, we will be taking action on this.
Can we, if it's okay, we're going to meet Thursday. Is there any way we can get an update Thursday?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Well, I'll continue with the context of my, my report.
Yes, sir.
Right now, I'll turn it over to Mr. Fountain to just touch base on the, briefly on the stormwater design manual. Phil and Bill was deferred, and then I don't think we need to talk on Castlewood. We took care of that in committee, so thank you. So basically, the stormwater manual.
So at committee, we did have quite a lengthy discussion on the stormwater manual. A brief summary of that would be that we discussed the different methodologies on how the Dutch dialogues approach has been incorporated in the manual, and that was something that was asked to be presented in more clarity when the manual is brought forward as well to council. We addressed how the manual has addressed the negative stormwater impacts of fill for development projects in relations to the second amendment on the agenda, which was the fill ordinance being discussed. Then we also discussed a time frame for implementation of the manual, saying that staff would recommend a July 1st effective date, and that would be any application that wasn't a complete application submitted prior to that date would then fall under the new manual. That gives a time for existing projects with pro formas to still be completed, but not enough time to develop a new project under the existing manual and try to rush that through and put that into being. Finally, we discussed hosting a workshop and public hearing for the manual at full council on the second January meeting. That seemed to be a time frame that worked for the committee and for the staff, as well as some of the interest groups. We did then move on, and these two discussions were tied somewhat together, but moved on to a discussion more focused on the fill ordinance itself and how the stakeholder group had responded to the fill ordinance in our discussion. They did bring up a few items that they wanted to make sure were considered when discussing that ordinance. One of them was specific to brownfield sites, that many brownfielder sites require a soil cap to be placed on brownfield sites, so how would that work within the no net fill ordinance? There was a slightly more involved discussion on regulatory methodology versus enforcement, that what regulatory methodology would be used to enforce basically to regulate the fill provisions, and then how would that be enforced off of that ordinance. So in an example, would you put it under the stormwater manual and say if you need a stormwater permit, then you have to comply with this ordinance, or would it be if you need a building permit, it would go under a building permit ordinance? And then obviously the enforcement methodologies are different depending upon which regulatory process you use for that. And then there was a question of basically how small a site would it apply to? Do you get all the way down to like small homeowner grading work? That actually got into an interesting discussion, because you can make some sort of silly, outlandish examples, like would you regulate, a raised flower bed? But that's pretty easy to take that and say, well, if you do a single raised flower bed 10 or 15 times, you've ended up lifting an entire lot by 2 feet. So it isn't as easy as it seems from that initial example. We then did talk a little bit more about how the task force felt that they had folded the requirements of some of these fill provisions into the manual, and said, can't we basically have more discussion on that if it's needed, rather than trying to have two standalone ordinances that are trying to interact with each other. The last thing that was brought up was just a general topic, that there was a concern there was still a loophole within the existing proposed ordinance, that you could basically just remove additional soil from one part of your property and then place it on the other part of the property, which would then still possibly create similar stormwater issues to what we're seeing now. That if you bought a 10-acre property, took 5 acres of it, basically took all that dirt, put it on the other 5 acres, you have no net fill, but you can still create an issue with the way water is flowing through the property and with discharging water onto the adjacent property. So they still felt there were some loopholes even within the existing ordinance. I think council did then direct staff to the council committee directed staff to prepare a resolution for the Dutch dialogues, looking at incorporating that as a city guidance document. And we felt that might be an approach to saying this is a very important document that needs to be addressed as we do things like develop stormwater manuals, develop projects for the city, but still provided it as more of that guidance plan rather than as a direct ordinance. And then we did have the brief discussion on the drainage review of Savage Road and Castlewood area.
I mean, as y'all can see, he has a wonderful way of explaining a difficult subject, but that's the extent of my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Accept as a report. Any further discussion? Councilmember Gregory.
I know you have the workshop scheduled for January, right?
So the draft manual is complete. The last stakeholder task force meeting, we did receive comments from, most of the comments came from the engineering community. We did open up to the entire task force. We did have some comments from the Chamber of Commerce as well. We've come back and addressed in the last meeting, here is every one of those comments. Here's where it was located in the manual. Here's who made the comment. Here's how we were responding to the comment, and here are the changes we're recommending for the manual. And that's what a lot of the last task force discussion was over. So we're now incorporating those changes after that discussion into the final manual draft, so that it should be ready for about the first of the year.
Okay, thank you. Which is January, February?
January 1st, I would think would be ready about January 1st, trying maybe the 2nd.
Okay, thank you.
And again, there were not major structural changes from what we had in the current manual, but there were some really good suggestions of how to provide more clarity of what we were trying to get across with the manual.
And that January 2nd meeting will be open to the public, or it's just a workshop for?
So the meeting for the workshop we had discussed doing on the 2nd January meeting, which I believe is the 28th, I believe.
Okay.
That was intended to be a public hearing as well as a full council workshop, possibly before the regularly scheduled, starting the regular scheduled council meeting a little earlier for that period.
Okay, so around the 28th of January is when we'll have the public hearing.
Right, and we would look to provide the draft copy of the manual to everyone well in advance of that, because it's a read.
Thank you. Thank you.
All in favor of accepting the report, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. There was a lot of great discussion at yesterday's Public Works Committee, that's for sure. Next Committee on Recreation, Councilmember Gregory.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the Recreation Committee met today. The two items that we voted on was the municipal golf course and the memorandum of understanding between the Charleston County and the city. And we voted unanimously, and of course, we've already voted on this in the Committee on Ways and Means. We had discussions on the other items, but no action was taken.
Right.
Second.
Accepted as a report. Councilmember Lewis.
Yes, could we make a correction? 1099 meeting should have been 1099 King.
Should be 1099 King Street.
Right. We have an Alpha Downey Community Center.
Thank you very much.
That correction is noted. All in favor of accepting the report, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is, I got to turn the page. Councilmember White, Committee on Ways and Means.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Please note my abstention on that one item. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up will be bills for second reading.
We got 1 through 10.
We've got 10 items to consider. 1 through 8 have all kind of been before us. Number 9 is coming back to us. That's the noise ordinance. and number 10 is up for discussion as well. So could I entertain a motion? Maybe we'll take 1 through 8 together, because I don't...
Approve of 1 through 8.
Yeah. Any discussion on any of those items? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now for third reading and ratification.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is the ordinance, the noise ordinance, the construction noise ordinance. Can I entertain a motion?
So move.
As amended? We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Shealy and then Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as the timelines of this ordinance, particularly in the summertime, if we shorten the time period that someone's doing construction, we're not shortening the amount of time that it takes to do that construction. And I heard about vehicles coming and going. We're going to have, if we shorten the amount of time that they can work, we're going to have more days of vehicles coming and going to do this construction work. 7 p.m., I just feel like in the summertime particularly, is a short amount of time, and I would like to suggest that we amend this to say the later of 7 p.m. or sunset, so that those contractors in the summertime can get more work done in a day, so they don't have to continue to come back so many times. Also, the summertime thing, we all know how hot it is in the summertime and how difficult it is, particularly when you're on roofs and things like that. And sometimes you can get more done when you're not in the heat of the day, when you have that extra hour between that 7 and 8:30 sunset time. So, I would like to see us consider moving that to the later of 7 p.m. sunset. Thank you.
Is there a second to the amendment? All right.
But he's going to ask to amend the motion over the floor.
Well, I believe the maker of the motion was maker of the amendment. So Councilmember Shealy made the motion. He amended it. So I would ask that at this point we restrict our discussion to the amendment and then vote on the amendment separately to see whether it carries. Councilmember Moody?
Well, I want to maybe expand a little bit on what Councilmember Shealy was talking about. I think there's a whole lot of stuff here that I don't believe has been thought through completely. That's just one item. When you have these laborers, these folks down there working, and you get a rain day or 2 rain days or whatever it is, then all of a sudden, these folks, they can't work on Sunday, and so they take a real hit in their paycheck when they can't work for 2 or 3 days because of weather. And Sunday may be the make-up day. And as you said, it doesn't, you've got so much work to do, and you can do it 8 hours a day and maybe do it for 5 days, or you can do it 10 hours a day and only do it 4 days. I'm not sure that I understand the difference between a chainsaw in the hand of a tree trimmer or a resident. It's still noise. And this just kind of says, well, the resident can do it, but the other folks can't. Likewise, it says that the city and the county and the state can do work that they're, without anything, but a contractor can't. Again, I'm not sure that I understand the difference. And probably the most important thing to me is this, I didn't see in this ordinance, and I'm supportive of some kind of an ordinance to control the noise, so it just doesn't go on all night. I think that's ridiculous. But when you've got, I don't know what noise is. It doesn't really define it. Is it some decibel level? It's kind of whatever somebody says is the way I read it. It doesn't really give us your decibel levels need to be below this or whatever. I just think it needs some more work. I'm not sure who drafted or who proposed this ordinance? Where did it actually come from? Do you know, Mr. Mayor?
Been so long ago now.
I was going to make some comments
Yeah.
about that. So.
Could I call on
I'd
Councilmember
be interested
Seekings
to
to
know.
address that?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a few comments. I'm not going to limit myself to just the amendment, if that's okay, because I do think some context is important to talk about this along with the amendment. First off, procedurally, you may remember, it's been about 2 or 3 years ago now, a lady came to council chamber. She lived in West Ashley. She was standing right over there, and she came up and said, "We need to do something about construction noise. It's making me crazy." And that was sort of the genesis of all this. And it's gone through a lot of permutations, but this ordinance is a perfect example of an ordinance that's just been out there with so many hands in it. It's not gone through a process, so all of us know what's going on at any given time, including but not limited to, we gave this first reading about a month ago. It's now come back to us as amended without a redlined copy. So that has not been lost on me. I mean, I'm wildly supportive of getting something done with this. We need to. We've been talking about it for a long time. You've heard the people from my districts and all over the city, they want something done with this. So let me just say, Councilmember Moody, this came collectively from our legal department, but has never gone through a committee process and has never been sharply focused on some of the issues and allowed, I think, some interim comment so that we all know where it's coming from. And I think that's a legitimate observation. It did come to Public Works, but then there was amendments made to it that came to us this week. And I don't think anyone around this table made those amendments. I do know where they came from because I've been talking to it. But again, and some of them are good and some of them aren't, in my view. This is my view. So I think it needs some focus. It needs to get done. And I do think that Councilmember Waring's committee is the place that it should get its final focus. That being said, there's also things in here substantively that changed fairly significantly that were just added. And a couple things I would point out. We heard someone make a comment that if we're going to limit construction on certain days, including Sundays, holidays make good sense. Christmas, Thanksgiving, all those days. Those should clearly be included in there. I woke up Thanksgiving morning this year, next door, there was a construction crew going on. I mean, with all due respect to the citizens of Charleston want construction next door to their houses in their neighborhoods on holidays. I think the answer to that, as we took a vote, is no. I do think we should add legal holidays to there. When you go through the exceptions, one of the things that's popped up is concrete pouring. We've had a lot of conversation about concrete pouring, especially when it's hot in the summertime with certain humidity levels and heat levels. I mean, we learned about it in great detail when they built the Ravenel Bridge. You might recall they had to pour concrete not once, not twice, but 3 times because they did it under wrong conditions. That being said, we've put a blanket exemption and exception to concrete pouring in here, which means you can do it 24/7, 365. That, to me, is a little broad. We probably need to think about, if you've got a permit and you're going to go pour concrete, that your ability to pour at 3 o'clock in the morning, if that's what's necessary, is tied to a permit. So there's some notice so that the people who come and talk to us here tonight don't talk about being woken up at 3 in the morning with trucks. They're loud. Concrete pours and all that. So notice, I think, and tied to a permit is probably a good idea. Then there's the exemption section, which first off, I snuck out and talked to Mr. Dina, is written kind of in a funny way. It says the city may issue a permit exempting specific construction and maintenance. It looks like you're talking about construction and maintenance of a public street. That's not what we meant to talk about. It says should exempt specific construction, comma, and thereafter maintenance of public streets or rights-of-ways. There's no time frame put on that at all. It says the disruption is temporary. There should be some time frame put on that. You can come get a special exception for a certain number of days, and there's lots of examples of that around this city, one of which I can point to tonight, which is 288 King Street. I mean, that has been going on interminably. It's in the public right-of-way. It's loud. It's going on all the time. So we need to pass an ordinance, but it needs to come through a process so everybody gets a shot at it, and it comes to us at one time with everybody having comment, including council members. And this time, I applaud Ansonborough for getting out ahead of this. Your comments, I think, are right on, but it needs to come back to us. So what I would suggest is we get this quickly back to Councilmember Waring's committee. I'm not going to vote in favor of any amendment to extend the hours. I think that's crazy. The hours are plenty. 7 to 7 is 12 hours a day. It is true that if hours stop at 7 and you don't work till midnight, it might take a few more days, but at some point, we've got to have quality of life at the forefront of what we do around this city, and it's everyone around here wants some time at home where there's peaceable times, right? And 7 o'clock at night seems to me to be a pretty good time. So that being said, I know there's a motion to amend. I'll vote on that as it goes, but I think we should give this, well, it doesn't really matter. It's either second reading or send it back to Councilmember Waring. I would like my comments to be considered by that committee as we go through. I don't want to go through the process of trying to, as council, redline it tonight, because we will, as you know, no one likes doing that. We want to see it. But let's get this done quickly and get it off of our plates. I would like to finally point out the following. The city of Charleston, when we, through Public Works and through our engineering department, when we issue contracts, we limit the hours of construction of our contractors. I see Mr. Fountain sitting back there, one of which is a perfect example is the low battery seawall. I mean, that's under huge time constraints. They are limited to 7 to 7. We'll stop them not till sunset and all that. So we as a city impose on our contractors that requirement that we contract with directly. We should do the same thing across the board, make it consistent and right and fair. So with that said, I think we should get it to Councilmember Waring quickly. Everyone should get a look at it, get their comments in, and move from that point. Thank you.
Councilmember Griffin. All right. So there was a process, by the way. It did come to this council after the committee, and that was some months ago.
Right.
It was much earlier this year, and the request of council at that time was to ask the business community to take a look at it. And Ian, if I'm correct, we sent it to the chamber for y'all's review and comments, which came back to staff. We didn't accept all of your comments, but we accepted some of them, and that's what we brought back to council in the spirit of trying to move this thing along. So could I suggest we'll vote on the amendment and then give second reading and send it back to Public Works Committee for one more shot at everybody take a look at it, if that sounds agreeable. Councilmember Griffin, then Jackson.
You made me want to talk after all. I'd like to make a motion that we defer this. I think all the comments, including his, should be discussed at one time. Let's not take anything off the table right now. Let's have everything brought up at one time. So I'd like to make a motion that we defer back to Public Works at our next Public Works meeting. Thank you.
We have a motion to defer. That takes precedence. Councilmember Jackson.
That leads me to just support what Councilmember Griffin just said. I do think it would be, trying to make things way too confusing if we adopt one little piece of an amendment and then try to add to it. So I think deferral is the best way.
All right. Was there someone else want to be heard? Wagner, then Gregory.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Over the last 7 years, we built a subdivision called Carolina Bay. I was one of the early guys in there, like number 40 house or something. There's now close to 2,000 houses in there. Early on, into the, I guess, the second phase, we were digging ponds, cutting up roads, a lot of noise. And it started very, very early in the morning, like 5:30 in the morning. The ones that were there, I mean, my door was being beat on, the phone was ringing, the email was running. I called Dan Riccio, and I said, Dan, come on, talk with me a minute. We rode out there. The residents that were there wrote up a list of their grievances. I called Pulte, and we sat down, and that subdivision came off without a hitch after we sat down with the residents. And Dan was at a couple of the meetings with me. We agreed nothing happens before 6 o'clock in the morning. No beep, 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 backing up with the dump trucks. And at 7:30, we knocked off. And of course, they're not going to work after dark. And I slept a lot better after that because there wasn't anybody trying to put a roof on the house at 5:30 in the morning under lights, or 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. And we built that entire subdivision on an agreement that included me and, Pulte and the residents that were there. And it went on and on and on, and now we're pretty well built out. The point is, okay, one size of this ordinance will not fit all. We got people downtown with one set of requirements and needs. You guys are a lot closer together. and a lot more impacted. A single event will impact more people downtown than it will out in Carolina Bay, and a whole lot more than it will people out on Johns Island. So I think since it's going to come back through anyway, maybe we ought to think about where we're doing this, or where you're doing this, and you. But bottom line, if you try to do one size fits all, it doesn't work in every single case, and I think these guys will agree with me. And that's all I have to say.
All right. Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, and mine's short. I'm in full agreement with Councilmember Seekins. I think that C needs work. I'm sorry. I think that C needs work because, as you can remember, as we were doing construction on the Septima Clark drainage project, we got numerous complaints. I mean, 24/7. And the way I read C, it would still be allowed. So I just think that we really need to look at C and make sure that that's clear.
Right. If anybody has any specific recommendations, by the way, please send them to Susan, and we'll pull everything together between now and next Public Works Committee.
But just very quickly, Councilmember Gregory is right, and I remember that we had an entire dorm of med students who was living right on the Septima Clark, and they would come in every week like zombies. So there's a real need for this, and we're not trying to get in the way of commerce. We are trying to make sure that quality of life is enhanced, and we need to do it the right way. And I do think get the recommendations in through Susan, get it to Councilmember Waring, and get it back to us.
Okay. We're going to give one more crack at bat on this. Okay, all in favor to defer? Aye. Say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, item 10. We had much discussion about this at the Public Works Committee yesterday, which Director Fountain just shared with us, but I'll call on Councilmember Griffin.
We still need this. I would like for us, I'll make a motion that we defer.
Number 10.
But I don't just want to blow through this. I want to give Councilmember White, Councilmember Wagner, Councilmember Lewis, Councilmember Moody an opportunity to weigh in on this because they've all been such great advocates for the city and for flooding, and we've gotten so far. And as you guys know, the whole reason why I brought this up is because we have areas of Charleston that we probably should not build under any circumstances. We have areas of Charleston that our building should be very, very sensitive and delicate. We have areas in Charleston where if somebody wants to build, they need to build their home up. And we have a report that we spent bukus of money on that's comprehensive, that we can all agree makes our city a better place. It gives us, I think, the most comprehensive game plan to address living with water, which is something that we are now saying, we're not going to combat water, we're going to live with it. We're going to model our city and our implementation phases of how to deal with water after the Dutch, who, like us, have the majority of their homes in a floodplain and have a quarter of their country below sea level. At the same time, we have a list of priorities that we spent a lot of money on, that Weston and Sampson provided, and we continue to address those issues and come up with funding sources to do so. A lot of the ideas in that report are still valid, and I think both of those documents can mesh together. One is more of an estimate, a cost estimate of what it would be to fix some of the flood-prone areas that are already in existence, and then the second is a game plan, a contemporary game plan moving forward. The reason why I've asked for deferral on this for the last couple of meetings is because we do have some legal questions about what a fill and build ban would do, whether it's legal, whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing. I think we can all agree that there are instances where a house should not be built. We can look at a property and say, that area is always wet. You know, that area is not a good spot to build. That is not a good area to cut off the topsoil and fill in with dirt. The Dutch came in and looked at Johns Island, West Ashley, downtown, and they found areas that have different, topographical regions than what we thought. And they've created these zones that we really didn't know existed. And for those reasons, I think the first step for us as a city is to have a resolution to adopt that report as something that we're using as a blueprint. Yesterday, we talked about Plan West Ashley and the Dover Coal Report. And while we didn't endorse the entirety of the document, we all agree that the chapter summaries and the executive report were great for our city and were something that properties in West Ashley should look at as what we're trying to do as we move forward and revitalize West Ashley. This is another component of revitalization. It may not be an economic driver, but how do you have economy if you can't live? How do you have economy if you're worried whether or not your house is going to flood every single year? And by the way, if we can show this nation that, and really the entire world, that we can be like the Dutch, we will be able to bring commerce and new businesses from all over the world. I hope 2020 is going to be a year of extended compromise, and I want to be somebody who is a better listener and less of a talker. And so I'm hoping that we can find a good compromise on this. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but we have to mesh our stormwater manual revisions. And really, the whole point for me was we need to be tougher on fill. We need to be tough. And this is an opportunity. I don't want to take away from the year that you put in on this manual revisions committee. You've done a great job. I'm proud of you. But we can find a...
You can have a bag of pistachios.
We have to find a way we have to find a way to show our residents that these reports that we've spent a lot of money on, they're plans of action. I got that from you, Councilmember White. It's time to quit studying. It's time to start acting. The only way we're going to do that is if we endorse a report and find ways to, make it the ingredients to our stormwater manual and make it visible so that our residents can see that. So I appreciate your support. That's the longest response on a deferral probably in the history of City Council. But I'm not going to let this go away, and I hope all of you will not either. Thank you.
Thank you. And I might add that was excellent suggestion yesterday for us to go ahead and officially endorse the Dutch Dialogue report, and we will bring that to you as quickly as we can. Councilmember Jackson, then Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Griffin. I continue to be very impressed with the way you've come forward to learn from all of the consulting and the education that we've been opening ourselves to. So, in some sense, willingly, in other sense, it is going to be hard, and we do have to be tough. And I do think that we have a way to be going here, and I would I'm not on the Public Works Committee, but as you know, I attend as often as I can, and I fully respected and supported the conversation that you all had yesterday at the committee. I do think that putting on the record our support for the Dutch dialogues as the roadmap that they have left for us is the right thing for us to do as we begin 2020 and get serious about doing our revision of our comprehensive plan update for the next decade. Those two things go hand in glove. We're talking about land use. The manual, and I have been privileged to be on that task force for the last year, is going to be the how for the what that we need to bring forward as a council. We need to bring forward the what are we going to do about flooding and sea level rise and the climate impacts. And that really goes right back to the heart of land use, in my opinion. And I do think that the Dutch dialogue set the tone for that and the stage for that, and we should just keep on going in the comprehensive plan, and I look forward to being a good listener with you, Councilmember Griffin, and a good compromiser, as long as we don't lose sight of the prize, which is to protect our region and our city and our citizens from what we know is coming our way. So thank you very much. I look forward to voting yes to that resolution to adopt the Dutch dialogues.
Councilmember Shade.
Very quickly, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So what we wanted to avoid was passing an ordinance that potentially could have conflicted with the stormwater manual. So this compromise really is very simple. We get the stormwater manual reviewed, get our workshop together, hopefully get it passed, and in the meantime have this resolution ready to be adopted, which recognizes and adopts the Dutch dialogue. And so we'll do that. We'll have two things that will complement one another as opposed to conflict with one another, and we'll get that working on the very first of the year.
And I might add that the adoption of the Dutch dialogues officially will also inform our master planning process for next year, where we redo our comprehensive plan. Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, just a quick question on the resolution. That resolution will incorporate that as a part of our stormwater manual process? Or are we accepting the Dutch dialogue as information only? I'm just, okay, so it'll be a part of the planning. Okay.
I might ask Matt Fountain to answer that, because he described it well yesterday when we discussed this.
There's a difference, yes.
So I think our recommendation was to adopt the Dutch Dialogue's approach as like a guidance planning document, and then in the stormwater manual to have a component of the manual that says in your stormwater narrative, how are you incorporating anything from the Dutch Dialogues into your approach to make sure people have read it, reviewed it, and at least thought about it in their site plans.
That's the answer I needed. Thank you.
I think we talked about enforcement and regulation.
He answered me.
The motion on the floor is to defer number 10 while we do all these other things we've been talking about. Anybody else want to be heard? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we have 3 bills up for first reading. We're going to take 1, 2, 3 together. Okay. And we have a second. We have any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Santa Claus is coming. I don't blame you, Mayor.
It's a good idea, man.
Oh, this is the CD. Thank you very much, Mayor. Good idea.
We didn't adjourn yet.
Thank you, CD. Who that? Yeah. Oh, Rutledge. Okay.